This is Chick2Chick Uncut, raw and unfiltered.
Ladies, today we're going to talk about the M word, menopause. Sorry, it's going to happen and you can't avoid it. You know, as females, I feel like we don't ever get a break. I mean, think about this. At 10, 11, 12, whatever age, we start to menstruate, right? And we do that, and that continues our entire lives. And then, bam, menopause hits, right? It just comes out of nowhere. And it sort of hits you like a freight train. And they call it the change of life because it really does change your life. It changes you physically. It changes you emotionally. It changes you mentally. It changes relationships. And then you don't even really know how to deal with all of this because we're not fully prepared to deal with all of this. It can even change your relationships. And there are probably days, be honest, that you feel like you're going crazy and maybe like you're even losing your mind. Well, guess what? You are not alone. And we're here to give you sort of a menopause survival guide. My guest today is Camille Wilson. She is the Senior VP of Program Development and Management with AARP. Camille, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Flora. I've been looking forward to this discussion. It's definitely an issue that's close to my heart and that I'm experiencing real time. So looking forward to our discussion today.
I think it's going to be great. Let's start by you just giving us a little bit of your background and how you became so passionate about menopause.
Absolutely. Well, as you introduced, I'm with AARP. I work out of our national office in Washington, D.C., and I'm going into my 20th year of being with AARP. It's been a fabulous experience for me. However, about 8 years ago or so, I began experiencing perimenopause, what I now know to be perimenopause, as I was working single head of household, teenage son, and became aware that something was going on with me. And it was most noticeable for me in the workplace. And so it was navigating kind of the environments of AARP where I realized that my body was changing. But most notably at that time, I was struggling with some mood changes and most notably rage, where I was feeling disproportionate emotion with things that were being said to me in the workplace. And so it kind of raised a flag for something's not quite right.
You mentioned that word rage. Okay, truth here. There were days that I wanted to kill my teenage son, like, I'm going to kill you. Did you feel that way too some days?
Some days I did. It was more so directed at it felt more unmanageable in the workplace because at least I felt when I got home that I could kind of take off that mask or kind of unfurl and kind of be myself. That it was really trying to manage that intensity of emotion and feeling while at work and navigating what was a upward career trajectory. I'm on an executive track at AARP and was really disconcerted by some of the feeling that I was experiencing in meetings, what might be perceived as normal men's splaining, right? And ladies, you know what that is. But I was actually experiencing it with a degree of intensity that actually a female colleague pointed out to me in a meeting one day, and I was completely oblivious to. And so because I was really concerned about how I was performing at work, particularly also as a African-American woman managing kind of the angry Black woman trope, that is really what set me off on what I call the Google machine, or going to Google and piecing together what was going on with me. And after about maybe 5-6 months, in addition to the rage, my cycle had changed a little bit. It had shortened and become heavier when I was always regular since starting menstruating at the age of 11. experiencing some adult acne in my chin and jaw region, just a number of things, hot flashes and night sweats. I'm having a bit of heat right now, as you might be able to see. So it was kind of after kind of putting all of these things together and understanding that they are all very common symptoms associated with the menopause transition or the period before the intermenopause, which is called perimenopause.
Yeah, and it can't just be menopause. There's got to be 3 stages to it.
Right?
I mean, right? Like, right? It's like there's premenopause, perimenopausal, menopause, and then you're postmenopausal. Let's break these 3 things down. What starts in perimenopause? What are some of the things that happen?
Absolutely. And I think the best way, or at least the way that I've started to think about it and talk about it in the past couple of years, is a continuum of our reproductive journey, right? And so you're in pre-menopause, 35 years and younger, right? Before it's like when you have that, the first menstrual cycle to that mid-30s age, when you can start experiencing symptoms related to perimenopause as early as 35. And that tracks with a fluctuation in your hormones, namely estrogen and progesterone. And so during that perimenopausal time, your hormones are going up and down, fluctuating, right? And this can go on for someone for a period of years. And so during that time, we can experience a range of symptoms. There are up to 34 recognized symptoms of menopause. So go figure.
Let's just go for 40, right? Why stop at 34?
What? And some, you do have some clinicians who talk more broadly, even beyond 34 symptoms, but most commonly you'll see about 34 recognized symptoms associated with menopause transition. And so perimenopause usually will run, the average age of menopause in this country is 51, but the normal age for menopause is anywhere from 45 to 55. So you reach menopause when your menstrual cycle has ceased. And so after 12 consecutive months of not having your period, you're officially postmenopausal. So menopause is marked after 12 months of not having a period. So I hate to disappoint ladies. If you've gone for 6 months, 7 months, even 11 months without a cycle, and then your cycle decides to show up, right, at 11 months and say 3 days, then you reset that year again, right? It has to be 12 consecutive months of no menstrual cycle before you're considered to have reached menopause. But there's still this very important period of health, of our health span in our postmenopausal years that are just as important, if not more important, to understand the implications of when we've stopped producing estrogen that coincides with the cessation of our menstrual cycle, again, after 12 consecutive months, then we are considered postmenopausal. And there's some real health correlations that come along with that postmenopausal stage, including cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis. Women can continue to experience vasomotor symptoms, which are hot flashes and night sweats, and be plagued with insomnia well into the postmenopausal years. And so it's important to think about menopause as not an end destination, but again, a period of health transition when midlife and beyond.
You know, I just recently learned, I thought that when you're postmenopausal, that it ended at a certain period of time. And I just learned recently that no, we're postmenopausal until the day we die, and that this lack of estrogen continues to have an impact and an effect on our bodies. You know, at the top of this podcast, I said that menopause changes us physically, emotionally, and mentally. let's talk about the physical changes. What happens to our body physically when we're going through menopause?
Absolutely. So because that estrogen is so important, we have estrogen receptors in every part of our bodies from our head to our toes. You can imagine that if they begin fluctuating, we're gonna have some implications as a result of that. So some of the physical changes I think that are most common are weight gain, right? Notably in our midsection area, but we start to have greater challenges taking off weight, maybe in our earlier years or before we reach this point in our lives, and can, do some intensive cardio and drop the weight that we've put on over the course of a month. It becomes much more difficult during our menopause transition years. And that's because we're battling those fluctuating hormones, right? There's a real biological reason. And so we might need to switch up our exercise routine, strength training, building and preserving muscle mass becomes much more important, right, than maybe that hardcore cardio at this life stage. And so weight gain is a very common physical change that we experience. We also can experience changes with our skin, either texture, skin can become drier, it can become thinner, right? That crepey thin skin that some women experience. And one that has plagued me is hair loss. There are some women who do experience changes to the texture of our hair, and it could maybe begin thinning, if not shedding, even more during this life stage.
The mental changes, I hear all the time about. I see you're going like this. Are you having one? Are you having one?
I'm like, how did I get on this call and not? Let's see, Flora, if I can grab it, just so I can let the ladies know that I'm not all for show. It is real.
Yeah. Get your fan. Hey, I have the AC running. Okay, so
the AC is running. The AC is running. It's a both hands.
So the mental changes, and one of the biggest one that I hear about all the time is brain fog.
Oh gosh,
it's a real thing. Like sometimes I'm like, you can't. It's misfiring in my brain. Yeah, it's a real thing.
It's a real thing, and that's one of the reasons I'm so glad that we're having this conversation today. But increasingly, we're having more conversations around menopause transition and what that looks like in women. I've heard so many women, interviewed women. I have a menopause platform inside of AARP to channel my passion around this issue. But just interviewing them, and the brain fog is one of the biggest challenges because we become forgetful, we lose words, right? We have used to having really strong executive function. As I mentioned earlier, I've been on an executive track. I'm a nonprofit executive. And being in meetings, in the midst of meetings, and losing language in the middle of conversation is a very real thing. Words that you use on a daily basis just not coming to mind. Or we can all probably relate to walking into a room and forgetting what we were going in there for. So, and not to make light of it, sometimes, it is humorous, but some women have felt that they have had really, and like going through dementia, is this early onset Alzheimer's because of the severity of what is called brain fog during this menopause transition that is very correlated to the fluctuation of our hormones. And Dr. Lisa Mosconi, a neuroscientist, recently published a book that there is evidence-based research that there is a correlation with changes in our brain, a woman's brain, as we're going through this menopause transition. So it's a very real kind of emotional and cognitive effect that some of them experience during menopause.
You just brought up the emotional changes that happen to us. And in the beginning, I felt like my emotions were all over the place. And now I've gotten to a place where I feel like I've kind of gone numb. I'm just like, I don't care. I don't care. You don't like me? I don't care. You don't want to hang out? It's went from being crazy emotion to numb to the point that I don't care. Is this all normal?
So that's you've reached what I call the liberation pivot. Before I too have reached that point, Flora, where it's, they're just things that, I would have stressed about, worried about, 5, 10, certainly 20 years ago, that are just irrelevant now. They really, they don't matter, and they're not significant. And the emotional piece is also very real. One of the symptoms that I battled with off and on really throughout my life, but became more pronounced at the earliest stage of my transition, was anxiety and mild depression. And it really was anxiety, if not managed, would evolve into depression. So, a feeling that I've been experienced with throughout my life, around my late 40s, and I'm 51 now, I'll be 52 in December, and I'm still actively perimenopausal, by the way. So that means I'm still getting my period every single month. Was an anxiety that was markedly different. It, rather than just kind of be like an over obsessing or a feeling of rumination, like thinking on things too long, it got to the point where I was waking up and feeling a sense of doom every day. And when this went on for about 3 months, it was really very unsettling and very unpleasant. I got to a point where I can't live like this. And I was speaking with, I was actually interviewing one of the certified menopause practitioners for my blog. And I happened to mention I was experiencing this. And she said, you know what, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that doom, that sense of panic that you're describing is very much associated with the type of anxiety associated with menopause transition. It's not necessarily your run-of-the-mill anxiety, but it is markedly the sense of doom, the sense of panic is very much associated with anxiety during menopause transition. And so while I didn't have extreme depression, and I've been fortunate not to have extreme depression, I also know that is something that when it's struggled with, and whether they opt to treat it through hormonal solutions or lifestyle medicine, cognitive behavioral therapy, absolutely the emotional component is very real for anyone.
We talked about some of the, the more noted symptoms, the brain fog, the hot flashes, the night sweats. What are some of the other symptoms of menopause that we don't talk about? For instance, I went through about 2 years that my hips were killing me. They were just, oh my God, I was dying. And one of my friends said, it's your sneakers. And I changed my sneakers. It was hip pain. And what I didn't realize is that it was related to menopause, and that estrogen is kind of like a lubricant for all of your joints. It's like the great elixir in our body that makes everything work. And I didn't really know what was going on. So that was a symptom that took me by surprise. What are some of the other symptoms that women don't really think about or know about or go, oh, that's menopause?
Absolutely. So one of I think most of the most important things to talk about is sleep quality, right? I think in addition to that musculoskeletal pain that you were describing, which again can affects our joints all over our body, manifests as pain. We might just think we're getting older, but in fact, it's correlated to a fluctuation and decrease in our estrogen. But then also the quality of our sleep, which I think many women have either been gaslit by their doctors into believing this is just something that happens as we get older. We just don't have the same sleep quality or enjoy the same sleep quality that we did in our younger years. But the reality is our sleep becomes even more important. And I've spoken with women who are actually postmenopausal and still perplexed as to why they're not sleeping well. And that's because progesterone, which actually helps with our sleep, has also decreased in our postmenopausal years. And so that's one of the things that I think we learn to just live with or accept But the reality is poor sleep quality, lack of good sleep actually can compound some of those other health issues that we're experiencing, right? In terms of weight, the weight gain and the inability to lose weight, then also the severity of some of the brain fog we might be experiencing.
I think sleep is so underrated and so vastly important. I like to have 9 hours a night. Sorry, I like to sleep like a teenager. And I feel like when I don't get that sleep, I'm ouchy. I'm really ouchy. I need to sleep.
Exactly. And so that doesn't change, right? That we don't become an adult and need less sleep, right? We actually need more quality sleep. And so there are a number of strategies and techniques. There are sleep therapists available that can counsel you through, but just really developing some good sleep hygiene practices. But most importantly, not just accepting that you have to live with poor sleep just because you're aging or getting older. Absolutely. Sleep is one of the most important things that we could do for our health and well-being throughout our lifespan.
What about stress and diet and what we eat? What impact does stress and diet have on menopause and the symptoms that we might be experiencing?
There's research that shows that particularly in this country, Black and Latina women experience menopause for a longer perimenopause for a longer period of time and can have more intense symptoms. And that's because of the correlation with psychosocial factors. And so those external stressors that control what we're already experiencing. And then also poor diet quality, right? When we reach this stage, we need more proteins, more healthy fats, less carbohydrates, right? Less gluten-based products that bloat us, right? And contribute to poor gut health. So I'm not a doctor. I don't tell you what on TV. I don't try to be a doctor, but I have learned a great deal about the role of a healthy gut and really kind of shoring us up for optimal health during our menopause transition. And again, that includes more whole foods, nutrient-rich diets, and a lot more protein than I think we're even to incorporating into our daily diets.
You know, and I think women need to pay attention and be aware of what is happening, because I know, like before, I used to be able to drink wine, and I can't drink wine anymore. I don't know. I can't process the sugar in it. It makes me sweat. I can't sleep at night. And I notice this difference. And so I'm like, I'm not drinking wine. I mean, you got to be aware, and you need to understand that your body's changing. You can't process things the way we used to process things and just go, this isn't working for me. You know, you touched on something earlier that we talked about, the emotional and the mental and the physical changes. There are changes also in the workplace. And when you go into work and how you're dealing with coworkers and stress and deadlines and things going on. And I don't think we handle things the same at work. Do you feel that way as well?
I do. And I feel fortunate to have flexible work options that that allow me to better regulate how I'm feeling on any given day as it relates to my menopause symptoms. So many women do not. And so I think we have to think about them in the context of what programs and supports can managers make available to women who are going through maybe a more severe menopause transition. That's the other thing that is challenging, is because each woman's experience is different, right? There are some women who will experience very severe symptoms for a longer amount of time. And then there are others on the other end of the spectrum who one day their period stops and then they process, oh, I guess I'm menopausal, which I wish that could all be all of our experiences. So you can imagine if you've had a relatively uneventful menopause transition, it might be difficult for you to understand, right? A woman who is experiencing, multiple of the 34 recognized symptoms over a number of years, right? It just wasn't your experience. So that's where empathy, education, just being aware, right, of what happens, what can be expected to happen during this period of time for those employees who might fall in that age range, whether from a managerial perspective, this is a workforce you're managing, or if you just want to be an ally and a support from a peer level.
I know you mentioned a few minutes ago, you're not a doctor and you don't play one on TV, but I think we need to talk about HRT, hormone replacement therapy, because we talked about all of the symptoms. We talked about what causes this. And basically, it's a lack of estrogen and a drop in progesterone. What about hormone replacement therapy? Is this right for every woman? And how can that help women? How can HRT help women?
Yeah. First, I would just direct everyone to the Menopause Society. That really does, it is the place to go for the most current guidelines on how we think about hormone replacement therapy or menopause hormone therapy here in the United States. But more broadly, in 2002, there was a study that was put out that really, my language, I think, did a disservice and kind of demonized hormone therapy as causing breast cancer, different forms of cancer. And the data has since found that it was really kind of that group of women that were surveyed that were far past menopausal age and also had existing comorbidities, right, that were part of this survey that maybe skewed the data or that wasn't fully representative of women going through menopause transition, perimenopause, again, starting as early as your mid-30s and going up to age 55. And so the research really focused on kind of a group that wasn't in the throes of menopause transition. Data has since found that, for the most part, menopause hormone therapy, hormone replacement therapy, and those are used interchangeably, benefit more women than not. That said, it will depend on your personal family history and your medical history. And this is where I really don't feel equipped to get into the details, but encourage women to speak to your doctor. Just because you might have a history of cancer, breast cancer in your family, or you yourself may have experienced breast cancer, does not necessarily mean you're not a candidate for hormone therapy.
And it's not just, HRT doesn't just help with your menopause symptoms, but again, I'm not a doctor either. My understanding is it could help with some other health risks, like with osteoporosis, with heart disease, and there could be some health benefits to HRT as well. Is that correct?
That's right. Also have the conversation with your doctor that starting hormone replacement therapy earlier can have some positive returns in those postmenopausal years, can help offset the degree of cardiovascular disease, can help protect your bones, right, from osteoporosis, can help with improved sleep quality. So again, there are benefits to menopause hormone therapy even after you stopped your menstrual cycle. And again, this is something you should discuss with your doctor. On the flip side, there's also kind of the myth that's being challenged that you have to have stopped your menstrual cycle to benefit from hormone therapy. That's not wholly true. Again, if you're still getting your menstrual cycle every month and you are struggling with some really severe symptoms, there may be a hormone treatment therapy, a hormone treatment plan for you. Again, your doctor can discuss that with you and what makes the most sense for you.
Yeah, and I know some women think, oh, I should have started it earlier. I know women who started on it in their 60s, and they're saying that they're noticing a change from it and that it is benefiting them. So on the other side of it, if there are women who don't feel comfortable doing hormone replacement therapy, what about natural remedies? Is there anything out there? Like I remember I used black cohosh that helped with the hot flashes and the night sweats. And I don't even know what black cohosh is, to tell you the truth, but I took it and it worked, girlfriend. So I was doing it. Are there other natural remedies like that?
Yeah, absolutely. The challenge there is, so you have your natural herbs and supplements like black cohosh, like red clover, that have some correlation to improving menopause symptoms, menopause-related symptoms. The problem is they're not regulated by the FDA. So doctors aren't comfortable prescribing them, right? But the reality is, if you do some research, ashwagandha, there are a range of, particularly in Eastern medicine or Ayurvedic medicine, a number of natural herbs and supplements that mimic phytoestrogens and that can actually address and improve some of our symptoms. Problem is, again, they're not regulated consistently by FDA and they affect every woman differently. But again, I think that's something you should engage your doctor in if you want to learn more about them. Okay.
Let's go there. Are you ready to talk about sex?
Let's talk about sex.
Let's talk about sex, baby. Shall we?
Sex,
we
yes.
can't, we cannot have this discussion without talking about sex. And sorry, guys, it changes for women when we go through menopause. And will you explain what happens to our bodies and how sex changes?
Absolutely. So like those other parts of our bodies that are being affected by the fluctuating hormones, our vulva, our vagina are subject to those same challenges. And so we may have had a very healthy sex life. And this is not necessarily about libido that we're talking about. Yes, we may have a decrease in desire, but there are women who maintain a decrease of sexual, maintain kind of a healthy sexual desire. We may have physical challenges associated with genitourinary symptoms of menopause. And that can affect our sexual pleasure. Also, urinary incontinence can become more frequent. Some women experience more urinary tract infections during that time, which are not only uncomfortable, but painful. And so these are all things, just our general pelvic health, the thinning of our tissue. Sex may become more painful where it hasn't been in the past. And so then that ultimately can affect our willingness or desire to have sex again, not because of a decreased libido, just because it's physically uncomfortable. And so there are hormonal treatments for this. There are also non-hormonal treatments, non-hormonal in the form of hyaluronic acids, where you can look for those, and or water-based lubricants can help, I think, with not just sexual function, but sometimes just walking around. I've experienced some soreness and sensation, and at the risk of sharing too much, I recently started a vaginal estrogen because I'm concerned about being able to maintain my juiciness down there, or really help my vulva health, right? It's and I've heard a lot of doctors say use it or lose it. So it's one of those things that if we're not tending to our genital urinary health, again, whether in the form of our urinary tract infections, the frequency with which we're going to the bathroom, incontinence, which can be an embarrassing issue, but one that we need to talk about, is absolutely normal. And again, maintaining a quality sex life, right, these are all things that are important to me. And so I am on the early days of vaginal estrogen, with in mind just prolonging my vaginal and pelvic and sexual health.
Well, and as I had mentioned earlier, that, estrogen is the great elixir in our bodies and it makes everything work. And it's, as you use the word juiciness, I guess, I needed it for my joints. My joints were hurting because it's a lubricant there. And estrogen is a lubricant there as well, right?
That's right. That's right.
Help me out here, girl.
Yeah, it's an important. And we need it, and there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm 50, I'm 60, my sexual health matters to me. I enjoy and want to maintain quality sexual health and function. And it's not okay for our doctors to correlate the quality of our sexual health and well-being with age or menopause or just be dismissive of us. Absolutely not. There are ways, whether natural, again, high hyaluronic acid. There are a number of excellent products on the market that can help if you're not ready to try a hormonal option. And again, not a doctor, don't play one. But the distinction with vaginal estrogen is that it's not systemic, meaning that it targets your vaginal tissue specifically. You insert it into your vagina, whether it's a supplement or a ring or a cream, and it targets your vaginal area. It does not travel throughout the rest of your body. So that is a distinction too to be made with vaginal estrogen.
Well, I think the beauty of life these days is that, things that used to be taboo, like my mother never talked about this stuff, and I bet your mother never talked about this stuff, but it's liberating to talk about it. It's okay to talk about it. Don't feel bad talking about it. If something's going on, have the conversation. Have the conversation with your girlfriends. Have the conversation with your doctor. It's okay. And it is liberating to say, you know what, this is happening. What do I do about it? Right?
Yeah. And that's why I think you're to be commended, Flora. I hope we just have more and more conversations on menopause. And I'm glad to join you as many times as you like, because it's important. We have to keep talking about it. And a woman might be hearing our conversation for the first time today and not really sure, right? Knows that, yeah, some of that sounds familiar, but I don't know if I'm ready for hormones just yet. That's okay. She starts from a place of growing awareness and learning more. And then as she becomes more comfortable, right, she might get to a place where, yeah, I'm ready to make this move for hormones, or, this lifestyle approach is working for me, or I've had great success with these natural herbs and supplements.
Well, I don't think that menopause is a one size fits all. I think it affects all of us differently. How it's affecting me is different from how it's affecting you. What's going to work for me may not work for you. And it's okay to figure it out and to do what's right for you and to pay attention to your body. So I'm so glad that we were able to have this discussion. I'm so glad that you came on the podcast. If women want more information about menopause and all of the different things we talked about, what's a really good resource for them?
Yeah, I would start with the Menopause Society's website, and that's www.menopause.org. And really, you can go there. Also, the beautiful thing about their website is they will give you the latest guidelines. They are a resource that can be trusted for the latest thinking on menopause hormone therapy. But more importantly, they have a doctor directory. They have a Menopause Society certified practitioner directory that features certified menopause practitioners across the country and including telehealth. So for those women who might not be in an area where physically they can visit with a certified practitioner, there are virtual telehealth options available.
That's a beautiful thing. And some final thoughts as we close out this podcast.
Menopause is not an end, right? It's certainly, I think we hear too much. It's been framed as kind of this end state, this doom when life is over. I think as you and I spoke to earlier, it is I think of it as a liberation pivot. There are things that worried me in my younger years that are just irrelevant now. We don't have the care or the headspace for them. I'm much more focused on my own quality of health, physically, mentally, emotionally, That's what this time has done for me. I've learned more about my own triggers. You mentioned red wine. I love tequila. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to drink tequila. It just means that I'm going to have a hot flash if I do, right? So just being more knowledgeable about my own physical, mental, and emotional well-being, and not settling for just the suffering of it. Continuing to pursue and figure out how to increase my quality of life because I'm worth it.
You absolutely are. And I think that was the absolute perfect way to end our conversation on this podcast. Camille Wilson, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
All great advice. So many wonderful things that Camille talked about, so many different topics that we touched on, all related to menopause. But ladies, the big thing here is you don't have to deal with this. You don't have to suffer. There are things that you can do to get this under control. Just have the courage, have the conversation with your doctor. Don't be afraid. But ultimately, you don't have to suffer through menopause. And we certainly hope that we were able to provide you with some insight and some guidance here to help you on your menopausal journey. Because remember, we're postmenopausal till the day we die. So you don't have to live with this, ladies. On that final note, do me a favor, make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Chick2Chick USA. That way, every time we come out with a new podcast episode, you'll get a notification on your phone. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. And we will be back soon with a new podcast episode.